Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of May the Devil Take You, an Indonesian horror film from 2018 that was directed by one half of the Mo brothers, our good friend Timo. Yes, this is the same director who recently gave us the highly entertaining action thriller The Night Comes For Us, and he's already had some experience in the horror genre with films like Macabre, its short film predecessor Dara, and the short film Safe Haven, which was featured in VHS 2. Even Killers has certain sequences that would fit nicely within that genre classification. So this man is operating within a comfort zone of sorts. But does May the Devil Take You reach new heights? Let's take a look here. Now the film begins with a pretty cool witchcraft spellcasting ceremony, which I'm always happy to see in horror films. An old man, played by the guy who was the villain in The Raid Redemption, hires a creepy woman to perform these rites. She uses someone's hair as part of the ritual, and you're not quite sure yet whose hair it is or what it's related to. Then we see a montage during the opening credits that explains the rise and fall of this old man's success and financial status. So there's some type of connection there. Afterward, we are introduced to our protagonist, who is played by Chelsea Islan, and we recently saw her in the Mo Brother actioner Headshot a few years ago, and in some ways, she's actually put through the ringer even more in May the Devil Take You. Now you can tell her character when she's introduced has gone through some crap in her past, you know what I mean? She looks kind of worn down, and she doesn't seem too friendly either. But in any case, she gets a call to go to the hospital to see her father, the old man from the pre-credit sequence. And apparently, something went wrong with that spellcasting ritual because this dude is in really bad shape. You know, he's unconscious, he has lesions all over his body. Then the stepfamily comes into play, and we're informed that Chelsea has some bad blood with these people, and her father, actually, because he abandoned her and her mother when she was a child. So, in any case, the medical bills start piling up, and they need some money to pay them off. So they decide to travel to a desolate, run-down family residence to see if there's anything valuable there. And that's when the crap hits the fan, because a supernatural evil is waiting for them. So let's rattle off some of the positives here, and there's quite a few, actually. The family residence is a very unnerving location, even more so than usual that you see in these films. You know, it's not your typical old house that has some dust lying around, but is still perfectly livable. No, this place not only looks really old, it looks nasty. You know what I mean? Nasty. And for goodness sakes, like, the walls are rotting out in spots. Like, it's in really bad shape, this house. So it's a very unpleasant place to be in, and I kind of like that the choice of the filmmakers to make it, I guess, extremely unpleasant, more than usual that you'd see in a film like this. The scoring is pretty sweet. You know, it uses a combination of ambient sounds and synthesizers. Lighting is also very effective in this. Some good use of orange, yellow, and red during the latter parts of the film. The acting is good overall. I like Chelsea Islan quite a bit, and she does a good job expressing emotion a lot. You know how some actors are good when they're more stoic, and then when they start expressing emotion, you're like, I don't know if they could pull that off. Well, Chelsea does good with her emotion and the way she acts with emotion, so that's a good thing. Now, in regard to the scare tactics, the filmmakers go for like a visceral, moderately revolting strategy that blends in creeps, moderately graphic violence, and bodily fluids all together. A few of the horror sequences did remind me a bit of Japanese ghost movies, only more abrasive in this case. You know, the evil spirits and demons in May the Devil Take You are very aggressive and mean-spirited. You know what I mean? On the other hand, you know, some of the scare tactics reminded me of a horror flick from the 80s, which I will not mention because you might recognize it and might spoil some of the second half of this film. And actually, a lot of reviews out there basically describe the film by comparing it to that horror film from the 80s, which I think does a little bit of a disservice to people who may not know going into it. But in any case, those similarities add some variety to the scares that I appreciated, because during the first like half hour you're like, is this gonna be like a more aggressive Japanese onryo type film? And then no, not really. It takes a turn for the better, and so more variety there. Now there are a few jump scares here, but those are mostly limited. There aren't really that many of them. This film relies more on ghastly imagery and blood. So if you're into that, this will be up your alley. And although some of those scenes will likely remind you of other movies at times, I do think that this film carves out its own identity by contributing some very memorable sequences. I mean, there are some very impressive horror sequences in this film, with a few highlights that occur during the final half hour. There's one scene, no spoilers here, but there's one scene involving a woman's face that I quite enjoyed. And that scene is then surpassed by a voodoo doll attack that's pretty solid. So, yeah, there's some highlights here that make this worth watching. And it all works, I think. It definitely enjoyed the horror content in this film, and then blended in with the good performances. And Chelsey's not the only one who gives a good performance. Everyone really does. So it has some good stuff in here. There's a lot to enjoy in this. And even like the lower key creeps and stuff work well. Now, when thinking of the flaws, there's a big one that I think prevents this film from being like a great horror film, in my opinion. The middle section of the film. Like, the opening section is pretty solid, does a good job of setting everything up, while at the same time providing a nice bunch of scares. And the final section is solid and does a good job of providing a satisfying crescendo of mayhem, so to speak. However, the middle section is a problem because the script writing is a dumpster fire. The script writing during the middle is a dumpster fire. It is not good. Almost all of the character decision making just makes no sense during that middle section. It degrades to the point of being a distraction for the viewer. I can handle some dumb character, decision making at times, but this is kind of excessive in that regard. And it's not just the illogical decision making that is a problem, because events themselves unfold in clunky ways. When you're watching a scene during the middle of the film, it feels like events that occurred during the prior scene are not impacting the characters as much as they should have. And consequently, the film lacks a certain rhythm, and it does not flow well from scene to scene during that middle section. That's easily my biggest problem of this movie, and it kind of fails to bridge the really strong first act and third act of the film. I mean, it's not like the second section is unwatchable or anything, because there's still a lot of horror content to enjoy, but I really wish they would have, fine-tune the script a little bit just to be more fluid. It doesn't have to be complicated or anything, but just have it be a little bit more fluid from scene to scene and create like momentum going through. But yeah, that's the big flaw in the film, I think. But overall, this film is definitely more fun and intense than it is frustrating, in my opinion. I still think Macabre is this director's most impressive horror film, but I do recommend May the Devil Take You for those of you who can handle some crappy script writing during, in your visceral horror films. This is definitely fun to watch, and it's currently available on Netflix streaming. And as always, we'll see you next time.